have asked you for that one, but I wasn't really bothered. Did you press play that thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, that's recording, yeah. How we doing, guys? How's the volume on that? What? Yeah, it's good. Picking it up anyway. If it's not, I'll be going right into Logitech and asking for my money back. It's your €120 fucking camera.
Hey, Logitech's very good, very reasonably priced. It's probably one of the best on the market.
The camera's great, like. The camera's great.
I have no affiliation to Logitech, not getting paid to say that.
No. This podcast is not sponsored by Logitech.
Or anyone.
Fleshlights.com. Remember when Joe Rogan was sponsored by Fleshlight?
No.
Yeah, he used to.
Was he really?
He used to do it at the start of the podcast, yeah.
The best one is Ben Shapiro. But first, and he goes into the whole spiel, he's like the best one for, what do you call them, the fucking sponsorship promotion track.
For who?
For himself, or for whoever he's representing. Oh, just had a crack in his ass.
Nice. I'm feeling that. Lovely. No?
So what's the story anyway?
What is the story? In Tullamore, level 4 in the morning.
Fuck off.
I think so, is it?
No.
No?
Where'd you hear this?
They're considering it, no? I thought that was looking like it. Like you said.
I think people have woken up to the
They
bullshit.
soften us up.
They soften us up, yeah, to keep talking level 5 just to throw level 4 at you.
Yeah.
Oh look, I just think people are fed up now. It's just fucking the statistics for total mortality over the last 5 years hasn't really changed. And as I just said to you earlier, viruses compete to kill the weakest in society. So COVID just seems to have killed people earlier this year rather than influenza at the end.
I'm the story.
Yeah, I just need to sort of get with the program of living, not living in fear.
How's the gym going then?
Look, the problem for all businesses, you probably know this yourself, is the media narrative of fear works on a lot of people, and people then are afraid to live their normal lives, including activities like gyms, places of worship, restaurants, anything where there's more than one person. So it's killing the economy.
Yeah. Did you see that video of the Orthodox Jews in fucking New York giving out? Yeah, it's interesting.
And did you see the actual fact that there's private cops going around taking photographs in the windows to see if there's people in there congregating? But look, New York seems to be a shit show. If you follow anything about American politics, their fucking mayor is a fucking idiot. De Blasio, or whoever the fuck his name is. So, you couldn't make it up.
You really couldn't, could you?
Tickles, doesn't it?
Just a little bit. It's like anything else, it's just all about letting go, not resisting.
Relax.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
So, how long are you podcasting?
6 weeks in now. I did that first video over 2 months ago, and then kind of had to go back, get some equipment and shit like that, you know, get ready to go, yeah. But it's going well. Young Jack Kelly there, his episode's doing really well. Like,
Is it really?
Yeah, because he's a lot of friends, a lot of followers. Guys of his age are like, you know, they're on the social media quite a bit. So
People are interested.
People are interested, yeah. The Bradford classes are booked out, despite all the bullshit that's going on, you know. Monday's full, I've got one space left for Wednesday.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting actually, because the course I'm studying is going into pranayama. So I guess it's looking at what Wim Hof would have been, what Wim Hof would have studied before he came up with his technique. And so a lot of it is doing the same breath work. Is doing the same breath work technique through the nose. So
Right.
as opposed to with the mouth.
And there's another thing that breathing through their nose has been proven better than the mouth.
Well, I'm actually enjoying it more. For me, with my broken nose from boxing, I always shied away from it, but the course, the certification I'm studying is primarily all nose work, so nose work.
Call it what you want.
Nose breathing, so yeah. This is nice.
Pranayama, what does it mean?
Pranayama, so pranayama is life. It's like the life force, and yama is, I don't know, I was just studying this yesterday, connecting with it. So it's the art of moving life force within. And there's all different forms of pranayama. So you have like holding your breath on an inhale, holding your breath on an exhale, and holding your breath in the middle, which is the most difficult. That's what you do in Wim Hof essentially, deep breaths, and then you leave the retention, you just let go. So when you let go, your breath's sitting in the middle. Your air capacity sitting in the middle as opposed to being empty or full, halfway, and then just sit with that for as long as possible. Now it's interesting doing that without rounds, like just taking a half exhale through the nose and just sitting.
So is pranayama then like chi?
Pranayama is chi, yeah.
So what would that translate to in the modern world? Energy.
Yeah. Connecting with the energy through breath. Feeling your own energy sources through these breathing techniques.
And like one guy explained it, he said you can't explain, most people can't explain how a flame or heat generates a flame and then creates a burn. We understand you need three things, you know what I mean? Oxygen, fuel and heat. But you can't actually explain it, most people can't, the actual process. Just like you can't explain the process of energy within the body, what do you call it, pranayama, chi, whatever.
Yeah, so as in like when you die, that energy leaves your body, that energy came in when you were born, the life force, like your
soul.
Your soul, yeah.
So what is a soul? Is the soul, what's his name? What's that Penrose guy? There's Penrose guys there.
Sam Penrose, is it?
No, I think it's Penrose. He's a physicist. He's an old dude now. And he thinks consciousness is another dimension, just like time and space. And we are the receivers of consciousness.
So consciousness is another dimension.
Just like a radio receives a radio signal.
So when you think, a lot of spiritual types, you hear about 5D, five-dimensional conscious. Have you heard about 5D?
No, go on.
You haven't heard 5D, so it's like 5D is the concept of raising your vibration, so that through meditation, whatever humanity is now shifting into the fifth dimension. This is the thing, it's a shift in consciousness, so the consciousness shift is going to 5D. But I don't think it's a shift going forward, I think it's a shift going back. You're going back to traditional way, before, the primitive, before like, what would you call it, Newtonian science came in and discounted.
In my head, right,
yeah.
It probably shouldn't even be based within time, forward or back.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about another dimension, then you're actually talking about another space.
Yeah.
So then you can't really apply that sort of way of thinking to it.
You can't apply, say, the way of time and space. So you're going forward. You're
not going forward or back. You're just going. You're going another.
Ascending into another place. So say, yeah, it's interesting. But then is that something that different cultures have already understood? That's what I mean by going back. So they call it the New Age.
Well, I don't.
So the New Age hippies. The New Age movement. Whereas Terence McKenna called it the archaic revival. You're reviving that which is ancient. So he's getting back to all these techniques that were there, these rituals, different ways of breathing. Because what Wim Hof isn't doing what he's doing isn't new.
No, he's just bringing it into the Western world.
Yeah.
So mostly what Wim Hof does is what they call Tullamore, isn't it?
Is it Tullamore, yeah?
Which is that fire breathing to raise your body temperature so he can do all his Iceman tricks, we call them.
Yeah.
Now the reason why we call them tricks is because any human can be taught to do it, I suppose.
Technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you talk about, say, archaic revival, it reminds me of things like, I don't know, we just say mathematics or jiu-jitsu, right? To say maths wasn't created, you're merely discovering it.
Yeah.
Just like jiu-jitsu techniques, you're not creating them, you're just discovering what's already existing.
Yeah, it's something that's already there.
So when you
That
talk
we're
about
just tapping into it.
yeah, new age hippies and stuff, you're just tapping into something that's already there. It's lost knowledge, I suppose. But then is jiu-jitsu lost knowledge?
It's interesting.
Like if you look at, we'd say pancreas, the very first would say stuff back in the first Olympics. Where you had bare knuckle boxing, you had wrestling, and then the partook in pancreation, which was no holds barred.
Were they using these techniques? See, it's an instinctual thing, isn't it? But it's refining the technique and slowing down and looking at it. That's where the jiu-jitsu side comes in, and they've refined stuff, you know. Because like Japanese jiu-jitsu had a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu techniques, really, you know.
Well, one gave birth to the other.
Yeah.
Really all it was what's that judo lad's name that went to Brazil after World War One or two, was it?
I don't know.
And he's the one who taught the Gracies.
Jesus, tattoos are it's always the anticipation is worse. The first 30 seconds I was like, oh fuck. And then, you know, now I'm like, ah.
Are you really? Yeah.
Yeah. I get into that little rhythm. It was like the ribs. I was shitting it for the ribs, and then once the needle was in, I was like, I guess the thing about the ribs is if you're getting a big piece and you're sitting with it for hours, it starts getting grueling after a while.
I think it's the breathing.
Yeah. Breathing into it.
I think when you take a breath, it feels like your ribs are expanding into the needle.
Ah, yeah. So shallow breathing.
And then if you're shallow breathing, it's probably going to increase the pain level. Because you can't relax. You can't, as you
breathe
say,
into the
give
belly.
in.
Yeah.
Breathe into your hot dantian.
Into the dantian, yeah. The equilibrium, the centre of balance for an athlete.
Yeah, you're starting to talk about that here once and we never got into it.
Yeah. Nicholas Grigoriades talks quite a lot about it.
Does he really? Yeah.
Focusing on your dantian. You focus on that spot to find your balance in jiu-jitsu. So if you're in your head, you know, you're thinking about going forward in your technique, then like unconsciously you might be moving your head in a direction it shouldn't be going. You're putting yourself off balance because of what you're thinking about, as opposed to always having your balance centered here. It's like when he talks about conceptual based jiu-jitsu.
Alright, go on.
So
I know nothing about this dude, so go on.
So conceptual based jiu-jitsu is looking, rather than spending all your time drilling techniques, you work on new concepts. So like the table concept is that basically a table has 4 legs, so it's stable. So what you want to do is take one leg away from someone and then put their weight into that area. So rather than drilling a sweep 100 times or 1,000 times, understand that concept and then you can create your own sweeps. And it doesn't even have to be a sweep, basically. You can just put someone's weight into that area and take away one of their frames on that side and then go. And obviously that's what a lot of the sweeps do. But it's breaking down how they work, looking at it from that perspective, and then saying, okay, I understand this concept, I have a few techniques, but then I can also, in the moment, create them based off understanding these concepts. So that's conceptual based jiu-jitsu. Him and Kit Dale are big fans of it.
So body mechanics.
Body mechanics, yeah. Kit Dale is like, don't drill. He was the anti-driller. But
anti-drilling, but then if drilling has been proven to work.
Yeah, it does. Of course it does, like, you know.
So can all
like
things not work in
and
with each other?
I guess it was good marketing for Kit Dale, wasn't it? It's good marketing, it sells. But at the end of the day, you know, George St. Pierre never did conceptual based jiu-jitsu. Neither did John Danaher when he was training them. You know, it's drilling. Who's going to win the grappling match, Gordon Ryan or Kit Dale?
Well, I don't know enough about either, but I'm going to guess Gordon Ryan.
Yeah, Gordon Ryan's going to win, yeah. He has beaten him, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
But you see, is that not because they say, is it you only use 10 or 20% of what you've learned in a fight? So you're trying to drill it so it becomes subconscious.
Yeah, so you're not thinking about it, it's muscle memory.
So then if you're talking about, we'll say, focusing on your equilibrium, is that some way to try and tap into what you call a flow state?
Yeah. What you're doing is you're centering your balance at all times. Your awareness is on centering your balance, so that when someone tries to sweep you, you're not giving into it. You're not going that direction. And look, it's a good idea. Because it always works. But you know, if you're a black belt and you've spent 10 years drilling techniques and you're very, very, very good at them and you've got a solid game, then you start focusing in on this conceptual side of things, you know? That might be where the money's at in terms of improvement.
It's not for beginners.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like detracting from technique is the wisest choice if you want to like improve.
Then does it just not depend on the person? Some people respond better to some ways of learning.
Absolutely.
So, it was it Gunny Nelson that said, like, you can get better at jiu-jitsu by just thinking about it.
Having that calm mind.
And did Bruce Lee not become better at his philosophy within whatever he was doing? The time he was laid up with a back injury for 6 months.
I'm not sure. Did he?
Yeah. That's what sort of switched in.
Interesting.
Hands are sore, aren't they?
They're nice.
Oh, they're really.
The fatty bits are always stinging, but they're grand.
Or the muscle and fatty, whatever you call it.
I'm a masochist though. I like the pain. Don't even like getting don't even like tattoos, don't even like the ink. Just like the pain.
Well, you're not the only one.
No.
I'm obviously some form of a sadist.
Yeah. Enjoy the torture.
Yeah. Just thinking it can't be easy for jiu-jitsu gyms right now with all this bullshit going on.
No. Not easy for many gyms, is it?
No. No, with mine, gyms are there to improve your health both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And if you're physically healthy, there's less chances of you getting sick. And if you do get sick, there's less. There's a better outcome for you if you're healthy. If your body is working properly, then there's a much better outcome.
Yeah.
So.
You know, like even with these, like shallow breathing, like people who breathe shallow, they're not getting. What you're doing when you're breathing shallow is you're building up carbon dioxide in your body. You're not releasing as much carbon dioxide from your system. When you have carbon dioxide build up in your body, what happens? I'll tell you what happens.
Come on, yeah, I'm listening.
So, yeah. No, that started hurting, so I had to take a second to gather my thoughts. So basically, when carbon dioxide builds up in your body and it's alkaline, what that does is that creates a breeding ground for cancer. So.
Yeah, well, I think the whole alkaline acid thing has been proven wrong, hasn't it?
No.
Within the body, are you sure?
That's based on the science of Wim Hof, the scientific literature is there
like
behind it.
I'm not disputing that would say a build-up of carbon dioxide in your system would necessarily be a good thing. I don't know enough about it. But I just thought that whole concept of alkaline or an acid body,
An acidic body.
Yeah, one leading to cancer, I thought that was debunked.
Was it?
I think so. Now I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, no, the scientific literature with the Wim Hof method, that's what it's based on.
Is it
It's the
really?
ultimate, yeah. Now I'll have to look at the paper. I wouldn't be able to pull that. Like I wouldn't be able to say 100%, but that's what's.
Yeah,
the
I'm not saying
information that's being
I'm
put
right
out
or
through
wrong. You
those
know what I mean?
techniques.
If you
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
anything I say, you need a slap in the face. If I say anything, you want to Google fact check that immediately. You know what I mean?
Fair.
Oh,
Fair.
Jesus. As like the dude who was fucking learned the circumference of the earth.
Aristophanes.
Yeah, I knew it was a Greek guy, but I couldn't remember his name. Now, the debunkers will try and tell you, oh, that's wrong. Well, look, so technically he didn't measure his paces exactly.
Yeah.
And his equation was technically correct, but because he didn't measure his paces correctly, he didn't get exact circumference of the earth right.
He was a little bit off, yeah.
He was a little bit off, this whatever, 1,000, 2,000, whatever many years ago. You know what I mean? But still, it was a mathematical feat.
It was some revolutionary shit back then, really. Because the Earth is flat, like.
Jesus, don't even
Imagine actually believing that.
Yeah, I don't know like what to say about the people who choose to believe that, and some who in some ways are intelligent.
Yeah, it's mad.
What you call it, cognitive dissonance, or whatever the fuck.
Cognitive dissonance, yeah.
Where no matter what the fucking proof is, it just believes.
Like, it's very simple. If the Earth was flat and it had an edge, someone would have gone and recorded it.
Oh, honestly, I hate to be a prick, but it's not even worth discussing, because it's like discussing is the tooth fairy real? Like it's just
like,
not.
Come on,
It's not worth the energy, is it?
No.
It's like, yeah.
The reptilians is a less stupid. It's a less ridiculous conspiracy theory, because alien races, how do we know how many there are out there? How old can they be?
Well, look, if you want it right, so
I'm not saying I believe it, but it's less ridiculous.
Look, so if you're looking at Goldilocks zones, right, which are technically the distance away from the sun where it's likely that a planet can inhabit life, right? So if a planet's too close to the sun, it's too hot, and it's too far away, it's too cold, right? So to believe that in the Milky Way system there's more planets in Goldilocks zones than there are grains of sand on the planet Earth. So to think that there's no alien life out there anywhere...
Wait, say that again. So there's more Goldilocks zones than there are grains of sand on the Earth?
There's more planets within Goldilocks zones than there are grains of sand on the planet Earth. Now look, it's not exactly that, because who the hell knows how many grains of sand are on the planet Earth, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Really what they're trying to say is that the number is so great,
it's beyond calculation.
Yeah, they can't quantify it, really. Well, everything's quantifiable, but they just don't have the information to quantify it correctly. So they're really just trying to state, when I say they, now I'm talking about astrophysicists and physicists in general, or whoever's the ones coming up with all these things. Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Brian Cox kind of...
Those types of people, so when they're stating things like there's more planets now, that's in the Milky Way, that's just in our galaxy, that there's that many planets in Goldilocks zones that could possibly have life on them. And then there's other things like, right, well, for life to create, it needs opposable thumbs, it needs certain things, it needs to be able to conceptualize certain ideas and things, right, which is also true. So at one stage on this planet, life was just dinosaurs. Doesn't mean it was intelligent, doesn't mean it was ever going to get off the planet or travel to a different one, you know what I mean?
But it's still life. Because alien life's a very, very, very big term, very wide umbrella term.
Yeah. So look, one NASA scientist I read one time, just as a theory, put it out there that it's possible that alien life exists on the sun in a gaseous form. And no matter how technologically advanced we ever became, we could never identify it, realise it exists, or communicate with it. Now, I don't know exactly if you've just thrown that theory out there just to point out or make a point, or if he actually believed it.
It's food for thought, one way or the other.
Food for thought, yeah. That for people who believe like there's no such thing as aliens, I think that's a bit silly.
It's egotistical. It's very, very, very arrogant to assume that we're not the only intelligent life out there. Like, very arrogant, like, you know.
And for somebody to say aliens have not travelled to this planet, well, that's a fair comment to make. If you want to go down that road, then that's
a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I believe it. See, for me, like, right, when you look at, the half, so like an ancient aliens, right? The humanoid, like half human, half reptilian creatures that you see, right? So this is where a lot of like people who talk about reptilian life forms have come and visited the planet and like genetically mutated us. I'm in complete disagreement. My thing on it is, when you do a heavy dose of a psychedelic, there's a big chance you'll encounter some reptilian humanoid entities, especially if it's like DMT or Iboga, you know?
Is there a big chance?
Yeah, well for me, it was fairly consistent.
So why just reptilian humanoid? Why not?
I think it was the snake energy of ayahuasca, the vine, snake-like, and it seems to be, it is a very much so a recurring theme.
So it's not like half dolphin, half human. It's reptilian all the
It
time.
was like, half man, half crocodile, half snake, half woman. Shiva as well kept popping up.
So you believe that just people's psychedelic experiences?
It's what they were drawing down rather than being contacted by
Another race.
Another race, yeah.
But then look, to be honest with you, I never believed that alien life ever had a chance to get into this planet. As Carl Sagan's pale blue dot, you know what I mean? You keep pulling back and back and back further, the Earth becomes this tiny pale blue dot that, you know what I mean, to discover to get here would be next to impossible. But then I listened to Bob Lazar on Joe Rogan, followed that by Commander Fravor, and you start to say to yourself, well,
Commander
look,
Fravor, I'll have to give that a look, yeah.
that's the dude who recorded the Tic Tacs, whatever they're called, flying around.
Right.
So Lazar's the dude who claims he was enlisted by part of the American government / military to reverse engineer a propulsion system that he believes was not of this planet. He made claims years ago about, I think it was gravity being a wave and some element 113 that was powering these craft, and that basically if you stuck a nuclear reactor in a time machine and landed 500 years ago, that people might be able to turn it on but wouldn't know how it works.
That was the same thing, that they might try and open it, and when they did, boom.
Boom, basically.
Yeah, that was, I'm a big fan of Bob Lazar. I like his stuff.
So I don't know. The man doesn't seem like a lunatic.
He doesn't. He seems very genuine, like his life's been ruined over the stuff he's come out and said, you know?
Well,
like, he's like, what has he got to gain? Nothing.
Nothing, no. But not just that, but a lot of the claims he made about gravity being a wave or this element 113, I think they discovered that element 113 again, fact check, don't take my word for it, in a hadron collider, or a form of it that decayed quickly, and now they added it to the periodic table if that's true, and they discovered from two black holes colliding that gravity was a wave. All these things in the last 10 years that Bob Lazar has been talking about for 30 years. So look, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We're never going to know, probably.
Never gonna know, no. That's the fun thing about it.
No, the strange thing was, remember that comet that was flying around in outer space there a couple of years ago, and they thought it was a ship of some sort?
Nibiru, the red planet, is it?
No. Nibiru is like the extra planet that...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
From the Sanskrit tablets, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, we say there was a comet there a couple of years ago, oblong shape, moving at consistent speed. For some reason, I can't remember what reason it was, the scientists believed that it wasn't acting like a comet and it was most likely some ship. And every theory that came up with to try and sort of debunk it themselves didn't pan out. So they still don't know, like, basically. But when you fucking very intelligent people coming up with this stuff, you have to sort of ask yourself, like, what the fuck?
You really do.
Yeah, because I'm not smart enough.
Are we living in a simulation?
Oh,
50-50.
Jesus,
50-50.
that one. Yeah, you can hear by the long pause I'm thinking, look, one of the mathematicians that claims this has done the maths and claims that there's more of a chance that we are living in a simulation than not. I don't know, I suppose, look, all models of mathematics can be flawed in some way or can give you the answer that you're technically looking for. I'm not saying that his model is wrong or his equation is wrong, but do I feel as though I'm actually alive? Do I feel as though I'm living in a simulation? I feel like I'm alive. I don't feel like I'm in a simulation. It's a simulation, it's a damn good one. Then you have the theories of how the universe was created, from whether it's the multiverse theory to basically the expansion event called the Big Bang. It's just the other end of a black hole So a black hole is infinitely dense, that sucks in everything, including light. And maybe the other end of a black hole is everything being released out into a brand new universe. There's 3 or 4 theories of how the universe began, right?
Okay.
So that's one. Another one
Right.
is, would say, the multiverse theory.
Yeah.
And then if you believe the multiverse theory, there's a theory which is crazy, which is called last Thursday, which means everything exists now since last Thursday. And people go, oh, but sure, we've proved that hundreds of years old. Yeah, but you see, if you believe in the multiverse and that universes and everything split off constantly all the time from different points, then it's possible that our universe split off since last Thursday and we still have all the memories of the previous universe. All this crazy shit, right, that these motherfuckers are coming up with, that is undeniable as a theory, and it makes perfect sense, just as much as the simulation one does.
Right.
Doesn't mean any of it's real.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I believe this, but you got me thinking about this one video I watched, and I just thought it was bullshit at the time, called the Mandela effect.
Right.
Apparently, a very large portion of our population who were alive when Nelson Mandela got released from prison remember his funeral, and Nelson Mandela dying back in the 80s, and another, it's like a split, like 50-50. Some people remember it, some people don't. Now this is the theory of the video. I don't
remember it, but I was alive. But go on.
Yeah, exactly. So some people said that he died at the time, and then other people didn't remember it. So it was the Mandela effect, that some people were living in one version of reality and some people were living in another, where there's like the Twilight Zone, where there is these very, very, very subtle differences. And he went through some other stuff. I call it bullshit on it.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. But he was using CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, as his theory, basically saying that like they could have messed with time then, when they tried to recreate the Big Bang, they could have shifted us into a slightly different version of the world before. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, the stuff he was saying, no.
Because human memory is a strange thing. Between your dreams and your concept of what happened years ago, most of the things you think happened didn't happen the way you remember them. Your brain has a way of fooling you. Like, just say if you had written down a diary every day of your life and you came across it 50 or 40 years later, I'm sure that some of the memories you have in your head wouldn't match up to the actual written diary.
Absolutely not.
So, just because people can't remember Mandela's dead. I remember Mandela being alive. I remember his fucking crazy wife fucking Winnie. You know what I mean? BMC and the way she fucking wrecked the place after he died. You know what I mean?
He didn't die too long ago. 2012, 2014.
I can't remember when he died.
It wasn't that long ago.
But I do remember the fact that...
So you think he died in the 90s, did you?
I don't know when he died. I'm not saying I don't know. I don't know when he died. Yeah, okay.
He only died in like 2012, 2014.
I don't know when he died. I can't remember.
So he died and his wife Winnie wrecked the place.
When I say she wrecked the place, her and the ANC. So look.
Yeah, but the ANC would have been well over by the time Mandela died, because Mandela died in the 20... He didn't die that long ago.
Well, maybe she was wrecking the place while he was alive.
So maybe you did. Maybe the Mandela effect is real. Did you? Shit, man.
Don't be playing with my head out. I'm trying to concentrate. I like playing with people's heads. Don't do it to me.
No, I didn't mean to. But this is.
Yeah, look,
maybe this theory is real.
Right, so look, here we go. Is my proof? My memory is flawed, right? So here it is. There's my memory flawed. Maybe Mandela was still alive when he took over the ANC and wrecked the place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, politically. What I say about Mandela is, no matter what happened to him, no matter how much abuse he took, no matter what happened to him in prison, no matter how many beatings or how much racial abuse he suffered under apartheid, whatever way you want to pronounce it, he still remained a very calm, peaceful person who lived honest to himself and believed in what he said and acted out in it, just like Gandhi or anybody else. You know what I mean? He was like South Africa's version of Gandhi in a way. You know what I mean? He didn't say one thing and do another.
He stuck with it.
Yeah, he was a peaceful person. He didn't let all the bad things that happened to him make him an angry person. And he didn't make himself sort of fall into that trap. And he stayed honest, he stayed peaceful, and he tried to share that with people and tried for reconciliation. Unfortunately now, there's some people over there who are pushing hate and fear towards others, because it's just an easy way to control people. People are quicker to respond to fear and hate and follow the leader. You know? But Mandela chose the harder road and stuck with it.
The path less travelled, the one in non-violence, isn't it?
Yeah, but like he was one of the greatest men alive within my time.
Yeah.
I suppose for a previous generation, one of the greatest men alive would have been Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
For another generation, one of the greatest people alive could have been Gandhi. You know what I mean? It's like there's been great people throughout history to learn from.
He's in there. He was one of my idols now. I did my Leaving Cert project on him.
Did you really?
Yeah, The Long Walk to Freedom. Borrowed that book from the library, never gave it back.
Bad man.
Bad man, but look, you know what? It was one of those things.
How many kids
I
did he
needed
have,
to study.
Which man is over South Africa now? Is Jacob Zuma still over South Africa?
No idea.
He's part of the Korzai, or Korzai. I know, yeah. I think there's like 13 national languages, and obviously there's more than that. There's probably some tribes like, or peoples over there like pygmies that are not recognised and their language isn't recognised. It's hard to sort of get around your head how big South Africa is.
Massive.
It's not even like, people talk about India like it's one place, but like India is huge. It's like talking about Europe as one place. Well, Europe is big and it has lots of different types of people and lots of different ethnic
So
groups.
diverse, like, yeah. How many languages is there in Europe itself?
But
Like?
the same is true in places like India or South Africa. Never mind just Africa alone. It's amazing how we sort of blanket think certain areas.
India is like India, yeah.
We just sort of blanket think them as one people, one type, one language, one belief system, which is fucking, is that some weird form of fucking supremacy?
There's a little bit to it, ignorance.
Is there a bit of white supremacy thrown into with the ignorance, or is it just plain old ignorance?
There's definitely a bit of supremacy in there, isn't there?
Do you reckon? Yeah. I don't know.
Again, down to the individual.
Well, look, it's probably not supremacy, it's probably just ignorance. It's like if you turn around and you say to an American, where's Bulgaria? And if they point to Hawaii on a map, you're like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter what ethnic background they're from, that's just fucking ignorance. So I wouldn't say, no, it's not supremacy. I don't even know why I threw that in there.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. What do you think of the back of the hand, Adam?
Alright, certain places. So do you know the fatty part?
Yeah.
The fatty part things down here. The middle is fine actually. Here we go, and I'd say that's about 4 on the pain threshold. Well, I don't know even. It's hard to know because the pain threshold goes very high like. You know, is it a 2? Is it a 3? In terms of like, you know, someone sticking a knife into you and pulling your guts out and then pouring salt all over the wound.
Yeah, I don't think you'd feel that. Strange as that sounds, I know, yeah, but like, the more severe the injury, your body goes into shock and you just don't feel it.
Really?
So like a paper cut's a motherfucker.
Yeah, paper cuts are a motherfucker, yeah.
But I had a dog hanging out on my arm and I didn't realise she was hanging out on my arm until I looked down and her feet were off the ground.
Yeah?
And there was no pain involved. There's absolutely no pain involved.
The adrenaline?
I don't, possibly, yeah, or I don't know what it is, but it's like it's a split second, like it's instant. There's no pain. It's just there's no pain.
You're in the present moment.
So it's like
fight or flight kicks in. Adrenaline goes through the roof.
I fell off scaffolding one time. Fell about 12 or 14 feet down onto a mass concrete stairs with a skimming trowel in my hand, right? And sliced my wrist open, and no pain. And no pain even off the bang on the stairs. But then we just go back to a paper cut. Hurts like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Stubbing your toe on the door hurts like fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody sticking a knife in you, pull out your guts. I don't know. would that be an incredible level of pain, or would your body just go, no, we're not even accepting that this is real? Is it one of those moments where your brain goes outside your body, your consciousness, and is looking at it from the outside in? Is it one of those sort of, what's that dude's name? Very proper, sort of almost posh English type accent. He's Irish though. He's a journalist, and he was speaking about being in, I think it was Palestine, or Lebanon. It was Lebanon, where he was on a balcony. These women with AK-47s brought him into this building, put him up onto a balcony where these men arrived then, and they were going to shoot him, and told him to open up his mouth, and was going to put the AK-47 into his mouth, and he was refused, and then he made a gesture like you're going to smash his teeth open, so he opened up his mouth. But he talks about that, and he talks about having an out-of-body experience where he's looking at himself down, like he's above his body, looking at it all happening. He says it's like being a secretary taking the notes on what was happening. He wasn't present within his body. He was basically outside his body taking notes. Watching it happen. And he was saying that he hopes for anybody who, we'll just say, was being beheaded or whatever, that they had the very same experience.
It was just over.
That they were outside of their body watching it happen, and they weren't present within their body feeling the pain. It's mad. It's mad how the human brain can disassociate.
Push you into those situations, yeah. Astral projection. Do you believe in that? Well, believing it is a silly way of putting it. Have you researched it? Have you ever experienced astral projection yourself?
I actually have.
Yeah? Mugwort's meant to be good for it.
A mate of mine years ago had a book on it, and he gave me a loan of the book. And there was some simple techniques about tensing and relaxing, picturing yourself leaving your body. So just back in his mother's house, there's a large skylight window beside the bed. I'm lying on the bed doing this shit, and so I sit up and I look around and I look outside the window, and I see my mother walking out. Now before I lay down, I was obviously looking out the window, and typical garden, the washing line is outside, but there's no clothes on the line, whatever. So I lay down, did the certain techniques, sat up, looked around, see my mother walk outside, put the clothes on the line, do whatever, rub the dog, walk back in. This is all, I say, like I wasn't physically sitting up, this is all within my mind. I got a little bit afraid, I won't lie, sort of snapped out of it. Set up really quick, looked outside, and all the washing was on the line. And
Really?
it was the correct clothes that I had seen.
Wow.
So
It's very interesting, isn't it?
No, it's actually quite frightening.
Scared you? Did you go into sleep paralysis?
No.
No? Ah, interesting.
The frightening part about it is, you see, there's shit in the book that talks about this silver cord that attaches from the center, well, it's the center of your forehead, of your physical body, to the back of your head, of your astral body, right?
Yeah.
And that allows you to go out so far. And it talks about fucking demons and evil spirits and all
They
sorts
can
of
cut
shit.
the cord or get into you through the cord.
Not even about cutting the cord, it's just about sort of entering you or affecting you. So when you're reading all this sort of negative shit in the book, right, you follow the first few stages and it seems to work. Again, this could all be in my head. My brain could have
create the situation, but it is in your head one way or the other.
It's in my head one way or the other. What was strange was the fact that there was no clothes on the line, and the clothes that I pictured in my mind, and everything that happened, and even the order that you put them on the line actually did sort of occur when I set up and looked around.
Everything was right.
Look, that doesn't mean it was real, right? Maybe, as you said, maybe it was like a form of sleep paralysis. Maybe I physically sat up and looked around. Maybe my brain just played a trick on me. I don't know.
I've had a few experiences with it, trying to lucid dream.
Right.
And so when I was trying to lucid dream, what would happen to me is I would either get caught in and have an astral projection. So I've had a few conscious dreams where I did astral project. Lucid dream, where I was controlling the dream. Where it was like you can fly. And I was flying.
Hiccups is a symptom of coronavirus.
Is it? It's also a symptom of this fucking nicotine thing I've got in my mouth.
I'm only messing with shit. That's gone dead.
Oh no, the screen's just gone off, but it's still running.
Oh.
Still blinking. I'll go over and give it a flick just
No,
to
that's
see.
fine. Hey, I just didn't understand. I just seen it knocking off.
Yeah.
That's it. So you've had a few of those anyway.
Yeah, I had an interesting one actually. I'm going to take this out.
It's bothering you, is it?
Give me the hiccups.
That's one hand done anyway.
Are we doing a bit of shading on it?
I'll do that in the end.
After, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, okay, that's interesting. The hiccups. Too much nicotine in it. My body's rejecting it.
Nicotine.
I do. My body's rejecting it.
Show your hand.
Oh, fucking.
Did you ever see that thing? What was it? Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
And there's documents on it that prove that one dude, from staring at a goat from a different room, fucking managed to kill this goat. What the fuck's that about?
On WikiLeaks.
It wasn't even WikiLeaks. Sure,
The CIA declassified it, did they?
yeah, but sure, they classified it. But the guy himself was interviewed a few years back and spoke about it, and gave a very lengthy interview on everything that was going on, how many of them were involved. It was all a little bit fucking crazy. Standing there just staring at fucking goats with mad
Give
ideas
that
in
flick.
their head. Flick away, yeah. What's that about?
The Men Who Stare at Goats. The film's interesting, so I'll make a little point on that before I tell you my astral projection experience, the most recent one. So, with The Men Who Stare at Goats, my problem with the film is it detracts from anybody having conversations outside of this. Oh yeah, I saw that in a movie and it's nonsense. Like my first experience of hearing about a chakra was when George Clooney ripped open his top and was like the Ajna chakra. It was a third eye chakra, but it was tattooed on his chest, and it just. You know the way the film is kind of comical and it's like sort of...
What movie is that?
The Men Who Stare at Goats.
I can't even remember the movie. Right, go on.
Yeah, so it's in that movie, and so what I found was that they were obviously, it's looking at MK Ultra, it's making people who ever want to talk about these sort of things seem crazy, because you know the movie has a narrative of it being nonsense. You know, it has that general feel to it. So that's what I like the film, but that's kind of my problem with it. And then, so to get back to my astral projection experience, it was after my ayahuasca retreat when I got back to Ireland from that. So I was speaking to my niece, and you know the way kids are. The kids, so she's like, Adam, do you have a fairy? And I was like, I don't. And she's like, my fairy's called Blue. What's your fairy's name? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, of course you have a fairy. Everybody has one, right?
It's like your guardian angel for some people.
Yeah, okay. So her fairy that she plays with in her head is Blue. So that was around 8 or 9 in the morning. I went for a nap at 11 o'clock that day. Lay down. I had this strange dream where I was thrown into the middle of an ayahuasca ceremony, and I was in the middle of it, and it was as real as being on ayahuasca as it was in real life. Like I felt the effects of it on me. 3 or 4 days post ceremony. So I'm feeling it, and I'm in the dream. I get frustrated, and the facilitators were people I've never seen before. They weren't actually the people who were facilitating at the retreat, and so I'm frustrated. I'm saying
Facilitators are like shaman, are they?
yeah.
Right.
So I'm saying to these people, why didn't you do this as a ceremony? Why did you just give us the fucking ayahuasca out of the blue? Like we're just in the middle of it out of nowhere. And there was one of those alien race people in the room, right? You know the tall blondes?
Tall whites.
Tall whites. Blonde, Nordic looking guy, probably 9 foot tall, and he was in a lot of distress because he was in a room full of humans. I don't know what the conversation was. He was having a conversation with some other people in the room. So I leave the room. I go outside and I'm outdoors, and there's this guy. He's like an elf looking guy, levitating. He's floating in like the lotus position, floating.
Define elf.
Elf. He's small, gnome, more of a gnome, your classic looking gnome, but he's not got a beard. He's a young gnome. That's what I got. That's what I felt. And so he looks at me and he's like, "Hi, Adam." I was like, "Hi," and he goes, "I'm Tom. I'm your spirit helper," he said, and he like giggles and he flicks me. And when he flicked me, I flung out of the dream, back into my body, and straight out my body into my bedroom. And now I'm looking at myself lying in the bed, and I start floating up over, levitating like he was.
So you're looking at yourself, which means you're outside your body.
Outside my body, in my bedroom, in that exact room that I was in during my dream, during my nap. So I start floating, and I float up, out through the roof. And then I'm like out in my estate, floating, and then it lasted for about a minute, and I was like, holy fuck, and it was like, there's this mad sensation that comes with it, like, this mad, real, hallucinogenic feeling, and I was like,
Alright, so just to play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
how do you know that wasn't just a dream?
could have just all been a dream. Well, it was.
So it wasn't astral projection then?
Well, it felt like astral projection. What you read about, what you hear about the technique of leaving the body, and you roll to your side. So when he flicked me and I came back to my body, I rolled out of my side. So when I practiced it around 2021, I stopped doing it out of fear as well. It started getting too scary for me. Now we're feeling that maybe my right side is my weaker side.
A lot of times, you know, pain is associated with your emotion. So depending on the emotion you're feeling, makes the pain worse. So maybe me questioning you
The adrenaline's on a high now.
is or questioning about your experiences.
It's bringing a heightened sense of emotion there as the ink's going in. It's always nice though. I'm a weirdo.
I fucking hate getting tattoos. I love tattoos, I want more tattoos, but I hate the feeling.
I hate the feeling.
Everybody's different. Some
Yeah, I don't know
some
what it
people
is.
love it, some people just can't handle
It's
it.
a love-hate thing. It's all about resisting and just letting go. I remember one time I was in here with you, or was it with you or was it in Bali? Well, I was doing mantras, so I was like,
Yeah, you didn't do that when I was tattooing
No,
you know.
so it's the and going with the needle. Because the vibration's quite similar. The and that's more harsh.
Yeah, it's much harsher.
Much
vibration.
harsher.
Your vibration is close to Schumann's wave, isn't it?
530 hertz, that is
Well,
correct.
it's 7.83 hertz.
Is it 7? Oh, the frequency's been changed. But
Well-
it was originally 538.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Am I
I
wrong?
don't know. It's like, is it being measured slightly different? It's like, is it Celsius versus Fahrenheit? I don't know. I just know the Schumann's wave is 7.83.
Is it 7? I thought it was 538, so I have to relook at that.
Schumann's wave is 100%. It's 100% 7.83, 7.82. I just thought it was mixed up. I used to say 7.38, but as far as I know, it's 7.83. The Schumann's wave, anybody that doesn't know, is just the resonance that the planet itself gives off. That's
Yeah.
all. Obviously, a dude called Schumann discovered it, probably
Yeah.
God's name, stuff
It's funny, I spoke about this in the podcast I recorded with Itzkatila.
like.
Yeah, she wasn't familiar with it, so I was giving her a little spiel about it. But I was saying 538, so maybe I was handing out some misinformation.
Well, I'm not saying you were. As I said, it could be like, as I said, Fahrenheit versus Celsius. There might be two ways of measuring. Just like.
Or is it that not originally it was 538 hertz and now the planet's vibration has changed because of Wi-Fi rays and radiation? No? Okay.
No.
Well, apparently it
I don't
has.
think so. Well, I don't know.
Apparently.
I don't know if the planet's vibration has changed because of Wi-Fi and that. Anything, like, you know the way the axis of the Earth changes every year. It's like by like a half a degree or less.
Yeah.
And you know, then you have the thing where you have the changing of the poles.
Mm-hmm.
And we said last time the poles changed was like 700,000 years ago or something. And this happens so many times within the planet's life that the poles switch from north to south.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say or who's to know if the resonance of the planet is changing slightly, why it's changing? You know what I mean? Or why do you believe it's changing? Like, if you believe it's changing because of Wi-Fi, I don't know. I couldn't picture that, to be honest. I don't know.
Nukes.
Nukes, Look, the weird thing is, look, we evolved on this planet. We're more connected to it than disconnected.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
like, there's a reason we need all these elements that are in plants that grow up through the ground. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
that's how connected you are. Obviously you need your iron, magnesium, zinc, all these elements that are in the ground to grow up through veg or during meat or whatever. So it's just then, are we connected in some way to that wave, to that resonance? Like, how the hell do swallows manage to go from Europe to Africa every year? Or how does salmon fucking manage to go up a river and spawn in the same place they were born and go back out to sea, hopefully before they die?
It's amazing, really, isn't it?
Well, look, some people believe, right, because your brain has 4 different frequencies, alpha, beta, theta, gamma. Again, I could be corrected on this one. I think it's alpha and theta wave. They believe that your brain reaches similar or same frequency as Schumann's wave, and you only reach that either in deep meditation or deep sleep.
Shamanic drumming as well brings you right there.
Does it?
I absolutely believe so. I've actually been reading out some scientific literature on it. Yeah, the drum, the tum 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 tum.
Can help your brain hit certain frequencies.
Into either alpha, theta, or gamma. I don't know which one it gets you into. It gets you the one of deep meditation. So that's alpha, isn't it? Alpha and theta.
Alpha or theta or theta.
Alpha and theta, yeah. So with
theta, theta, tomato, tomato.
Potato.
Potato.
You ever see with Sacha Baron Cohen when he does that?
No.
When he so like he plays dumb with like who was he was interviewing? It wasn't Dick Cheney. That was recent. That was in Who Is America. So it would have been years ago with politicians. So he was like
Ali G, is it?
With Ali G, and he's like explaining how it would like disarm the people that he's interviewing. He's like, well, I would act very fucking stupid beforehand. So he'd be like interviewing it was one of the a Democrat fucking, it was a vice president at the time. I'll have to remember who it was, right?
It doesn't matter, just
anyway. So the story was, he sits there and he's like, yeah mate, so I'm very, very grateful to be in the US of A. Thank you for having me in this wonderful country. And he's like, thank you, son. He's like, so how close to so is this close to America? And he looks at me, he's like, USA is America. He's like, yeah, you say tomato, I say potato. It's like, what sort of fucking idiot am I dealing with here?
I'm just wondering, did Louis Theroux get his fucking interviewing techniques from watching Ali G?
Possibly.
Act harmless, keep repeating the same question.
He could have got them from, what's that guy, Columbo, the detective.
Detective, yeah, pretend to be slightly dumb and
then
see what happens.
What was it? He just, at the end of every episode, he'd walk back in and go, just one more question. And then he had them.
My favourite one is the South African one, Louis Theroux, with the guy with the game reserve. Did you ever see that one?
I did. You told me to watch it.
Come here. Knock off that fucking tape. Are you fucking stupid or something? We're living in fucking Africa. They fucking kill everything. They eat everything. Look at that beautiful animal. He says, we have a rhino now with the horn, whatever inches long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Theroux is like, it was just that moment when your man gives him the truth.
Yeah.
And the honest to God's truth is basically, humans are like a virus on the planet. We're going to eat and absolutely kill fucking everything.
Yeah.
Unless you give these animals a value to not just the villagers, but people who want to come in and shoot them as a prize.
Yeah.
Then the locals will actually fucking kill all these animals until they're extinct. This is just the reality of the world you're living in. You're not living in some fucking utopia. You're living in a fucking world where humans are like fucking blue mold on bread. We're fucking chewing up the planet. And people who are poor, as that South African was like, the fucking elephant, he doesn't eat the shitty tree. He comes in and he eats the fucking beautiful tree, the best tree. You know what I mean? He says, no, you know what I mean? He's making a case for just humanity of basically, you can't blame these people in Africa who are piss poor and who are just trying to make ends meet and survive and feed their families. To look at these animals coming in and destroying their crops and everything else is not more than pests or vermin. And that's why they want to kill them. And then if you have some fucking Chinese or Vietnamese guy, it's mostly Vietnam that does the rhino horn, that's willing to pay you silly money for rhino horn, you're going to fucking do it as well. Because you're killing two birds with one stone. It's getting rid of the pests and they're making a few quid out of it at the same time. So
it's a sad state of affairs.
It is.
It's a sad state of affairs.
It is. The reality is, if the poaching, or not the poaching, if we'd say, if game hunting makes, we'll say, an elephant, a lion, an impala or a rhino a huge commodity worth serious money and a value to that local community, and then that local community will no longer kill it. They will manage it and keep it alive,
They won't let it go extinct. They'll keep it for monetary gain as opposed to just fucking wiping it out because it's a nuisance.
Yep. And Irish people are full of shit in one way, that we all think we're great in the way that we think we're all green because the country is green. Look, the country is fucking green because we chopped down every fucking forest and we killed our wildlife and we chopped down nearly every fucking hedgerow.
Was it the English that did it though? Did the English kill their wolves? They took their oak trees and planted them on their reservations. Was it?
Right, so
all the English?
Okay.
Can you blame
there's a very
colonialism for everything?
No, you can't blame colonialism for everything, because what people don't understand is for a long time most English kings were Catholic.
Yeah.
So during colonial Ireland, for most of the 800 years, maybe it was for 450 or 600, I don't know the exact figures. For a long time during colonial Ireland, the kings of England were all Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a certain amount of support within Ireland for these people.
Yeah.
It's only when, obviously, look, was it the English came here first to solve a dispute between two kings in Ireland, and then they decided to stay. And when then they stayed, then decided to slowly take over, erode the place. Then we'd say you had the planters, where they started bringing in Scottish and Presbyterian people to plant on land and take land from the Irish. You had the Pale, which was Dublin, Wicklow, Kildare. You know, look, it's just history. History, one man's story, his story. Did the English eventually try to kill the Gael? Did they try and get rid of the Irish language, the Irish culture? Yeah, they did. Hey, it's just a very human thing, unfortunately. Irish people went to America and other places as indentured slaves. Not indentured slaves, sorry, well, as indentured servants. They weren't slaves. That's the wrong term, right? Because the reason they weren't slaves in a way is because they were processed under human law, whereas an African slave was considered chattel, like cattle with a H. So they were not more than an object, a commodity. You could do what you like with them. No different than if you owned a sheep or a cow. If you decide to kill your sheep or your cow, you could do that. Nobody's going to say boo. But then, yeah, Irish then went, and when they became free of their indentured slavery, some Irish, not all, obviously,
not all, but
I'd say
some.
a large percentage of Irish probably ended up marrying African slaves or other indentured servants or whoever. But some Irish went on to become slave owners in America, or to treat Aborigines in Australia very poorly.
Hey, did you ever hear about
it's a human phenomenon.
You know when you hear that like in like African American culture, like especially with hip hop, like you dig me, homie?
Go on, yeah.
Right, so the 5 points, that phrase originated back in the 5 points in New York, which would have been a district, and so you would have had a lot of Irish and African slaves living there together. And so na jigging to in Irish is you understand me. You dig, you get me. So
I get you. It sounds like you dig at me.
You dig me? Na jigging too. So what happened was the Irish were explaining some of the language to Africans at the time, and then the phrase got like colloquialized and watered down, I guess, and taken in as a part of the African American culture. You dig? There's a few other phrases like that. Blind Boy gives me these little gems of information.
Do you know, is it Jamaica? Is it 10 or 20% of Jamaican heritage is Irish?
That's very interesting.
Montserrat and St. Lucia, it's like 40% of the heritage is Irish. So you have, we say, a lot of dark-skinned people of mixed heritage in, say, Montserrat and St. Lucia, and all have an Irish accent. Like we call it a bastardized Irish accent, like a mixture of a few ran in together. So
lovely.
I suppose, look, people who suffered together ended up fucking living together, loving each other, and then obviously fucking procreating at the end.
Love is love, mate.
Yeah, it is love, mate. Yeah. Most Irish people don't know all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, like Frederick Douglass. You know Frederick Douglass?
I've heard the name.
He would have been a part of the A or B. Now I could be wrong. This is 1845. So the African Revolutionary Brotherhood, I think it was called, or the African Republican Brotherhood.
Right.
So what they were doing, they were African slaves who were looking for independence. Frederick Douglass came over. He's got a book written about it when he came to Ireland, and he said when he was in Ireland, it was the first place he was ever treated as a human being. Yeah, he would have been Huey Newton. He would have been Huey Newton. It's one of his big influences, which was like the Black Panthers then, in that's the 1960s, the 70s. But like with Frederick Douglass, yeah, he spent a lot of time in Ireland wondering how we were looking at how we were getting our independence and fighting back. So and using the same techniques. I think it was the IRB. Am I getting my dates wrong?
The IRB, yeah, go on.
So they call it as the ARB as well. They had the ARB. In America, they used the same techniques for guerrilla warfare and stuff like that we use. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a book I haven't got around to reading, but I've listened to. He's done multiple podcasts on it.
But yeah, Irish people nowadays, like it or not,
are fucking racist.
Well, there's a
there is.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say, well, there's a subculture, sort of like a subconscious racism. Nobody wants to be racist, really. Like,
no.
Like, nobody wants to be a hern addict. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be a cunt. But I suppose if you're raised within a certain thought process, or you're exposed to a certain thought process growing up, you do have these sort of subconscious, unconscious bias, or if you want to call it unconscious bias, or racism, or unconscious bigotry, or, you know, it's like, I had a guy here one day, a young guy, he's of African descent, you know what I mean, but he's Irish, and in just pricing or whatever, I can't remember what was happening, or paying a deposit, there was a woman sitting there, and when he left, she was like, oh geez, he'd very good English, hadn't he? I was like, Jesus Christ, that's an awful racist thing to say. And she was mortified. I said, geez, that, like, she didn't
think she was being racist at all.
She had no concept. She didn't mean it in a negative way. She didn't, you know what I mean? I said she was mortified. I says, look, like, it's just...
He's Irish.
Yeah, he's Irish, but there's no point in sort of thinking that. Like, I had to sort of say it to her just I don't know, if you want to put educator on the point.
Of, yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? That's an unconscious thing. You know what I mean? She had it said without realising it.
A Freudian slip almost.
Yeah, but then you have to ask yourself, why did she think that? You know, it's this subconscious thing that, I suppose, look, it's part of our history, the whole anti-English, the colonial thing, the tribalism, to sort of subconsciously just in your head think, well, Irish people are this and they're not that.
Yeah. Whatever
that is, whether it's Asian or African or whatever the fuck, which is silly. If you're born and raised in a culture, that's what you are.
Absolutely.
Imagine turning around and saying, Jesus, you had very good English for a ginger.
Very good English for a ginger. Yeah.
Huh? It's silly. But then you surely had some bouts of racism, Adam.
Oh Jesus, lots.
Had you
lots? Lots, yeah.
It's sad, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
It is sad. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad for this society that would say. Obviously, I'm guessing that most of it was probably when you were younger by other people of a similar age.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why did they think it was acceptable?
I guess. How do you put it into words? They thought that it was funny.
So it's just blatant ignorance.
Blatant ignorance. I was a little bit different, and I was the closest thing to, a different culture that they were around because of my surname. But sure, I'm white, like, you know.
Well, it's not that. It's
that's the thing. It's like I'm African Irish.
Is it just a way for them to become a tribe, have their own community by singling out somebody who's different? So then all of us are together.
All kids bully though. All teenagers like go through that bullying phase. Not all of them, but you know, when it's a thing, and then it's a group.
If they point out difference and said, look, I'm sure there's loads of gingers in Ireland who get bullied.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's loads of people with buck teeth who get bullied.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ears.
Yeah, there you go. You know what I mean?
There was one guy in our class who had a giant left ear, and he was called Left Ear for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Left ear, you know.
Well, there's a guy in national school when I was growing up, and he was born, his jaw was sort of crooked.
Yeah.
And his name was Feaker, but everybody used to call him Feakley.
Feakley,
as in teeth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Feakla, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, that was just a horrible thing when you think of it.
Yeah.
But is racism then really racism in Ireland, or is it just bigotry pointing out difference just to be a cunt? Obviously, yeah. Look,
Yeah, no, that's
I'm just
something you could
saying,
unpack. You could talk about that for a few hours.
there
couldn't
is
you? You could
real
unpack that.
there is real racism. I'm not saying there's not real racism. I'm not saying there's not real racists. But if we're just saying that in general,
I was called all sorts of names. Kunta Kinte, Toby.
and that was the
Do you know Toby?
No.
And okay, so it's
Toby's
that,
out that what's Kunta Kinte out of Roots?
yeah, Roots. So his real name was Toby, but no, his real name was Kunta Kinte, and they were getting him, they were trying to get him to to go by a slave name Toby. That was it, yeah. So I used to always get into fights over it.
Which is understandable.
Oh yeah, start throwing slaps off the bat.
Yeah, because like there's only so much you can take.
Yeah.
And then when you're young, I suppose, look, at that age, that's the response, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's violence.
Violence is it's the easiest way to go, and emotionally for me, I could never get into the verbal debate.
As I said,
It
look,
didn't take, like, my boiling point was very, very, very
well,
close to the edge.
yeah, well, yeah, because you're living with it.
Yeah.
So then you must have thought to yourself in your head, am I different? Why am I different? Why am I identified as different? Which is fucked up.
Always. And travelling from school to school as well, there was a massive part of that.
Again, you're different, you're not from the
And
area.
you're starting off in schools every time with your surname, the teachers can't pronounce it, they're stuttering over letters, and then, you know, people are giggling, and then at lunchtime that comes out, you know. So it's like, yeah, took a while to settle into myself, I guess. Quite a few years.
But
Probably mid-20s.
As I
even,
said, but
you know?
nobody wants, I would say most people don't want to be racist.
No.
Would not like to consider themselves racist. And would not like to be racist.
Yeah.
But just, a lot of people have this unconscious bias.
Yeah.
That they're grown up with.
But they're the same guys who are using racist slurs, got a Biggie and Tupac poster in the bedroom, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and it is, and then that's the hypocrisy comes in. All they listen to is hip hop and rap, and then, you know, they're calling you this and that.
But then, right, we have, right, so, right?
Like
when you
Bob
think-
Marley smoking a joint with Up the Ra coming out of his mouth in a speech bubble, spread all over fucking Limerick City.
But then you have, we'll say, people in America who live through segregation would not use those words as slurs, right? And yet they don't like those certain words being used within rap music because they living through segregation were the subject to those names, right? They lived through, we'll say, being
They
treated.
live through those experiences, yeah.
Whereas a lot of black youths nowadays in America don't live that experience, but yet they think that they can use certain words and say, oh, we're taking back the power. Whereas the older people...
The older generation didn't, because they understood it
differently,
yeah.
So then has Tupac and Biggie and all these people, has that culture got something to answer for in a way?
It depends on who you ask. Depends on who you ask, you know?
Well, it's like, would most people use the N-word? And I'm saying the N-word just to be politically correct there, right? Because really I have no problem with saying the word because we're only talking about the word. I'm not using it as a slur.
Yeah.
I can talk about the word fuck and not say fuck you. You know what I mean? But yet we can't talk about the N-word and boom, because a white guy's saying the word, oh, he has to be racist. That's a bit dumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can understand a white person saying it in a negative way is very hurtful. Can we not just discuss the word?
Well, like a friend of mine, good friend of mine I was living with in Australia, he was Canadian, but he was, you know, so he's North American, has the culture and the slang, and every second word was the N-word. But he used to call me you little N-word. So all the time, me and my friends...
Can you get away with saying it because you're part African?
Nah, I don't think so.
But then, that's a slur that was an American slur, isn't
what happened was, because he was saying it around me so much, I couldn't help saying it. You know what I mean? Back to him. Not back to him, but using it around him all the time. And he didn't mind at all. He had no problem with it, as long as the context was right. As long as the context was right. And you weren't saying it
in a negative
way, you know? It was absolutely fine. So I guess it's down to the individual and how they see it. So not, you know what I mean?
But then look, some people
But then when it's the KKK and how they use it, And then it got, of course, segregation, where the word originally came from. It was a word that was used to keep people under, and fucking
Well, it comes from the word Negro, which actually, I think, now, I could be wrong, does Negro not sort of mean black? Does that not translate to black, like, is that not, I don't know what language is it fucking Latin or what
I'm not sure, but yeah, that is where the word came from, yeah. Of course, so, absolutely, it's all about intention, it's all about context, you know? It's like the same with the word queer. Like, you know, you have a lot of gay friends, you can call them queer and it's no problem, but if you call someone in a negative way,
faggot.
It's a slur. Yeah, no, even though you use the word queer or faggot, you can use that for your gay friends or whatever.
Can you really?
Yeah, for homosexual friends, whatever way you want to call it. It's fine, they don't mind it as long as, say they, but like people don't mind that as long as it's done with the right intention, you know?
Yeah, I've never called them anything but gay.
Yeah.
And even to their face, it's not but gay, because I don't know, you just say, I don't use certain words.
You don't want to,
I just don't use certain words.
I don't use it either.
Like
I don't call anybody anything but what they are, personally, but it's just
I don't
the
use
concept
the
of it.
N-word
Like,
in my daily life, full stop.
I don't use the Q word or the F word either. Maybe we should use that.
You see how silly it starts to become when we're referring to them as the Q word and the F word.
Yeah.
Rather than just talking about the word.
Yeah, because
we're all afraid to say the word, aren't we?
Yeah, it's not.
Because we don't want it being fucking interpreted wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to be interpreted as
if
racist.
anybody misinterpreted this conversation, then they need to get their ears fixed.
Some people will interpret it wrong because our intention and their perception can be two different things.
Yeah.
Because you could have 10 people sitting there, and I could say, Jez, you look like a little bunch of pigs.
Stings.
And one guy could have been called Piggy as he was growing up and he could lose the plot.
Yeah.
That's not my intention, though. It's his perception. So look, obviously some people
could be called a freak all their life and that word would set them off. We all have different trigger words, you know?
Yeah, that used to be a trigger word for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, that used to be one of mine. Because I used to be sort of slightly different.
Yeah.
As in, outside of the societal norm growing up. So that's when I used to be called, and that used to be a trigger word for me, the freak. Hey freak, yeah, you're a freak. And I used to, in my head, well, like, what is a freak? And they couldn't answer it. So then why call me something if you can't explain it to me? Like, what does that mean? Come on, give me the actual reason behind it.
What are you saying here? What are you trying to get at, like?
Yeah, what are you trying to call me?
So did you experience much bullying growing up then?
Everybody does, yeah.
Yeah?
I think everybody, well, from my experience in Ireland growing up, well, the time I grew up, now I'm nearly 47, I think you're always bullied by older generations.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anybody in my generation that didn't receive some form of bullying from lads older than themselves growing up, whether it was in national school or secondary. Especially when you went into secondary school and you had guys there from different towns and everything else all sort of coming together. There was going to be some bullying, yeah. So did I receive some bullying? Yeah. Did I bully some lads? Well, I probably did, yeah. There's no point telling fucking lies, yeah. I was a cunt when I was in national school. I had issues, I wanted to fight. So I used to go around and I used to pick on bullies. So if there's a lad bullying somebody younger than him, I'd go over and I'd start a fight with him.
That's what I used to do as well, actually, because I got bullied, so I felt like rather than bullying the vulnerable person, I'd bully the bully once I learned how to fight.
I was bullying the bully, but then technically I was a bully.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't doing it for altruistic reasons, like, or I wasn't doing it to be really kind to the guy who was being bullied. I was doing it because I was angry and I wanted to kick the shit out of somebody. So I just fucking said, right, well, I just justified it in my head that I can kick the shit out of that guy because he's been a bully. But then I was technically a bully. So then if somebody weaker than me in school obviously got too smart, well then they'd get it, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
No, I wouldn't say it. Look, to be honest with you, I was an idiot. I would have gotten into trouble with lads who were stronger than me growing up too, you know what I mean? And would have received the rough end of the stick.
A few kickings, yeah.
You know, there's nothing like getting punched in the face to make you realise where you are in the pecking order. I know, yeah, it sounds a bit weird, but
it's true though, it puts you right in your place.
Yeah, because, hey, young men have a sad belief really to think that they're in some way invincible or bulletproof or they're tougher or harder than they actually are or they're better at fighting than they actually are. And sometimes a punch in the face from somebody older or tougher than you is what you need to wake you the fuck up. And I got plenty of them.
That's good for you.
Sometimes it didn't wake me up. Probably made me a little bit worse when I was young. But then, hey, young and dumb. We're sort of allowed to be that, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a learning experience, isn't it, you know?
Yeah, but look, as I was explaining to somebody here getting into this type of conversation before, like how do you tackle bigotry or racism within a society? For me, I think it just comes down to, I think you have to start teaching kids from a young age basic human behaviour and critical thinking. So if you fall into some aspects of tribalism or picking on the odd one out or, you know what I mean, whatever that may be, ginger buck teeth, faking darker skin, you know what I mean, that you realise, look, this is human behaviour, don't participate in this, it's negative behaviour. And before assuming something or thinking ourselves about a subject, try to apply a little bit of critical thinking to it, ask yourself a couple of questions about it, criticise yourself, be the critic of your own thought. Ask yourself, well, does that make sense? Why am I doing this? Why would I think that? Why would I say that? Is that hurtful? You know, is that going to benefit me? Is that going to benefit that person? I suppose getting away from tribal ideas. But most people are raised to be tribal, aren't they? No matter what world or what, we'll say, country or culture you're grown up in, you know what I mean? If you're in Africa and you're growing up as a Hutu, you're going to have some negative thought about Tutsi.
Yeah, or if you're in Tullamore and you're growing up as a Liverpool fan, you're going to have negative thoughts about the United fans.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing, isn't it? It's human behaviour.
Yeah.
So why do humans behave this way?
We need, it's for
Is it
community. It's genetics. The tribalism thing is genetics. It's a part of survival, I guess. The safety net unconsciously. It's a way of being secure, having an identity, and
well, obviously,
getting
look,
on.
in evolution, if you were the odd one out, you were probably ostracised, kicked out of your tribe. You didn't get to procreate, so your gene pool didn't carry on.
It literally comes down to survival.
Yeah, or what genes were passed, I suppose. But look,
Are those genes not? So the genes that are passed down are genes that know how to survive, and so within that structure of subconsciously understanding how to survive, that gene is passing it down to you. You have to have a community if you want to thrive and procreate.
It's basically a default mode. So your brain, I suppose, your subconscious brain has a default mode, and that default mode is to be a member of a larger community, because members of a larger community survive to this point, you know what I mean? To beat the other tribe or whatever it was, or they can manage to fucking take all the fucking cows from the other African tribe, you know what I mean? Whatever it is that people still fight over nowadays in poorer countries. Resources during drought is the resource, the water hole, to keep your cattle alive and fuck the other guy. So look, it's really just a question of how do you tackle these unconscious bias and cultural norms that probably exist within all cultures and all countries, not just here. Like I say, yeah, Irish people can be subconsciously racist, but I suppose that's true for all people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is probably a side effect of some form of national identity. If you're raised to have a certain national identity or national pride, then you're obviously going to notice the difference in other people, are you?
Yeah.
Or are we just a pair of fucking idiots talking shit?
No, I think we're onto something here. Maybe the New World Order's right. One race.
Well, you see, here's the problem with these ideas, right? If I had ultimate power, you had ultimate power over the world, we would try to push our ideas onto the rest of the world of what we believe is correct and what we believe is the right way to progress into the future, or what we believe is the best for humanity as a whole. So do people always have the best of intentions, but power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, you know, Like, if Putin was running the world, would we all be happy?
I don't know.
Would we be happy to live in a world run by the Chinese?
It's hard to know.
I don't know either. Wasn't
I don't
that
think
this
so.
sort of idea of a one world order, a one race? How do you have one race and yet still hold on to certain cultures, certain...
Traditions,
Yeah.
like different ways of being, and that's kind of like diversity is what makes the human experience beautiful, is that we have all these different little things about us. That like you can go to one place and it's a surprise what you learn there, and then you learn something in Sweden, you learn something in Amsterdam, you learn something in Portugal. Wherever you go, you're picking up little different bits. Like for me, that's one of the most beautiful things about being alive, is to discover the adventure of discovering these little things. So it's like if everything was all tempered and brought down to if there was no surprise.
Monoculture,
yeah.
They're just like ants in an anthill. We all carry on the same way. Do you lose certain nuances that certain cultures have?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm sure we've lost a few already as it's gone, but then,
It's like a French couple here trying to explain cliché to me once, right? And our understanding of cliché and the French understanding of cliché is totally different.
Okay.
And for them, it's real, it's tangible.
Yeah.
And even though they're trying to explain to me, their English wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get their intention or their meaning properly, even though I knew what they were trying to convey to me. It's like those little nuances, they disappear, wouldn't they? If we're all in some sort of monoculture. So then, but what is the future?
What is the future?
Like, is the future, whether you like it or not, is it a monoculture? 200, 300 years time, if humans are still around.
What about the Georgia Guidestones?
Oh,
Why are they there?
Why are they there? Well, look, there's loads of
There's a
theories
big
as to
question.
why they're there, and I think that they know who put them there and why, and all this idea
Who?
of, I can't remember, watched a couple of things on it.
What is his pseudonym? The pseudonym he went under was R.C. Christian.
Yes, they don't know who the actual person is, like
Yeah.
the physical person. They have beliefs as to who it was.
Like,
this
any
is-
idea? Can you remember off the top of your head?
I can't remember, no.
Rockefellers?
Can't tell you, can't remember. This idea that there should be only 1.5 billion on the planet Earth.
500 million.
500 million.
That's half a billion. That
Half
would
a
be
billion,
killing
yeah.
off 13 out of every 14 people that are alive right now.
Well, look, here's the truth, right? A lot of people won't like this one. I'm all for depopulation.
Yeah.
Right? But as Bob Geldof talked about, I think 20 years ago, he was the first one I think I heard speaking about depopulation. He talked about depopulation through contraception.
Just not having as much babies.
And contraception through education.
Yeah.
So you try to bring everybody up economically.
Yeah.
You try to educate everyone. And from there then you try to convince them to have less kids. But then if you look at economically fucking wealthy countries, the more people who are working and are more invested in careers and have less kids.
Yeah.
And
So it's a natural thing
and
that happens through education. And yeah.
Well, it just happens from being well off and being invested in your job. If you work 40 hours a week and your missus is working 40 hours a week, you're probably going to have less kids.
Yeah.
But poor people have more kids.
Yeah.
And then some cultures, like a Pakistani friend of mine explained to me that the reason they have kids, so many kids in Pakistan, is that you're reliant on some of the kids taking care of the older people, or the parents when they get older.
Yeah.
Because there is no pension, there is no dole, there is no social welfare in some countries.
Well,
So you're relying on having enough kids that some of them will
yeah.
still be alive and be financially stable, and they can take care of you as you're old.
But the whole, for me, right, I understand the idea, and like, yeah, it's a good idea, but we're gone well past that. Like, there's no way we're going to be able to depopulate the planet through contraception and education now, because there's too many of us and we breed like rats. There's simply too many of us.
Well,
and
really, right, so
the
you
birth rate, there's too many people
so you have
being
to ask
born.
yourself,
Yeah.
where is the birth rate the highest?
Well, it's going to be in
Because
poorer countries, obviously, yeah.
Obviously, yeah, because
Yeah.
places like Germany, they have such a poor birth rate that's why they brought in 1 million refugees, because they need these people to maintain their economy, to do all these jobs, to
Yeah.
maintain the economy, to pay for them as they get older.
But the population is going to get down to, say we're looking at that figure of 500 million. We're not going to get to that unless we get hit with an asteroid, people get nuked, or we start opening up concentration camps.
Have to knock off that alarm.
Or a serious virus goes spreading around the world.
So what do you think? Do you think this so-called coronavirus pandemic, right? We're just going to say,
No,
right?
it's not powerful enough.
I'm just going to
devil's advocate. Yeah,
I'm just going to throw this out there first. We say the coronavirus pandemic, right? If you look at the 5-year mortality rate of most countries, total mortality rate in most European countries that has been most hit with coronavirus and have had it for the longest, has not really changed in 5 years. So that suggests that coronavirus is a type of a flu, and as one dude put it, all viruses compete to kill the weakest in society. So that respiratory virus killed off people earlier in the year who would have died at this time of year through influenza, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying then is this what some people believe? These are conspiracies. Here we go, all right, with the tinfoil hat shoot. Is this like a trial run to see who would or wouldn't comply, to see who would or wouldn't follow the rules, or then just to see, like,
See, they're building camps in, I don't know if it's true, but I'm seeing this coming up quite a lot. They're building camps in Canada for people who won't comply for the vaccine. They're building internment camps. Now,
I don't know, but what I would say is this, right? Not that I don't to interrupt them, but that's like,
go for it, yeah.
Czech Republic right now is finding out the hard way that you can't micromanage a virus. They had severe lockdowns in the beginning, masks and everything else. They were one of the first for it. And now they're realising that you can't micromanage a virus because now they're getting heavily hit with it. Right? So, is it a case that no matter what...
But they had massive lockdowns, did they?
They were the first to actually bring in stringent rules and masks everywhere. And they had the least problems in the beginning, but now obviously you can't micromanage a virus, you can't contain a virus. Even if you lock down all your borders and everything else, if it's in and if community transmission hits a certain point, so if you're at a certain percentage within community transmission, it's going to go through your community one way or another. You cannot stop that, right? So, like, we're just going to say, right, if they came out with a virus in the morning to try and depopulate the planet, right, well, you can't micromanage it, right? To think that you can protect 500 million people from getting it and that you're going to be one of that 500 million, or to think that that particular virus is not going to mutate, and even though you might have a vaccine that works, that by the time it gets to you, you're going to survive it. I don't know, to be honest. I'm just talking rubbish here, but I don't think you can micromanage a virus. I don't think you can. The only way to stop a virus in its tracks would be if everyone was 100% compliant and you had a hard lockdown of the whole world for 6 weeks minimum. And that is utopian shit, because you are never going to have 100% compliance. Never. So...
Like, we've tried and we've failed. It's just time to, like, you know, have the experts be honest, say, look, like, even with that, what was the video there with the Doctors for Truth, is it? No, Doctors...
I know what one you're talking about.
The one you shared is that I was literally looking at it earlier on today, and the English guy says at the end, he's like, the doctor who was working for the World Health Organization, he's admitted he panicked, as you would, like, because they didn't have a plan in place, you know, and he's now saying lockdowns don't work and there's a better way to go about it, but they have to sit and think about it.
But look, I was posting about this back in March, right? And you'd find it even on my Facebook, where I just referred to it as rabbits with myxomatosis. I was looking at all the different projections and the research, and guys were talking about mitigation and curves going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And rabbits with myxomatosis was designed to sort of kill rabbits and control the population of rabbits. But what actually happens is the mix, we call it the mix, comes along and it wipes out rabbits nearly, probably decimates the numbers down to 5 or 6%. And within a few years, the rabbit population is back up to 100+%. Right? The numbers go crazy again, and then the mix hits them and it takes down the numbers, and then they come back again. And so this is basically what mitigation was going to do. Lockdowns, control the number, you're back to normal, numbers go up, lockdowns, control the number, you release back up. So it's this up and down bullshit, right, of fucking mitigation. It doesn't work in the long term.
No.
It doesn't work in the long term. What works in the long term is realising, number one, that we've got off very lucky, that this is not as dangerous as people first thought. Did it kill a lot of people in March, April throughout Europe and the world? Yes, it did. Is the information coming out now that seems to have been the height of the pandemic? Yes, it does. Is there an understanding now that viruses compete to kill the weakest in society? and that respiratory virus killed the weakest in society in April, rather than those being killed in October, November, December during respiratory flu season. And would say the numbers in somewhere like Sweden suggest that to be true, because their numbers for the last 5 years, total mortality rate, haven't really changed. They have less dead this year than they had in 2015. And their number this year is within a 10 or a 15 per 100,000 as 2017. But anyway, depopulation.
Depopulation, yeah.
Should it happen? Like, we're carrying out genocide in the fucking sea. There ain't going to be no fish left 2050 if people just keep going on the way they're going. And how do you stop people whose livelihoods depend on fishing, whose kids going to college, who's paying their mortgage, who's paying their insurance, medical insurance?
We're gone beyond the point of no return, in my opinion. We're well past the point of no return now, in my opinion.
Now you're talking about the point of no return, we'll say, for the planet and for food source.
Yeah, for fucking...
and resources.
Yeah, well gone by it.
Well, we'll just say, right, if they manage to get the technology a little bit better, right, in the morning, for Petri dish burgers, growing a burger out of a couple of muscle cells.
Yeah.
If we get to like a Star Trek version of, I don't know, what is that, replicator, where basically it replicates food, but this is basically food grown in a lab, rather than a need for a large herd of animals or to take certain things out. Do you think we're still going? I suppose, look, the problem is really the structure of the world's economy and the work involved in it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you stop all fishermen from fishing?
You can't.
How do you tell them all, well look lads, you shouldn't be doing that anymore? How do you tell all farmers, like, we need to get rid of all your sheep, cattle and...
You can't. That's what I'm saying, it's too far past the point of no return.
But is this new world order that we're referring to, when they're talking about automation killing most 50% of jobs in the next, we'd say, 40 years? Now look, these figures are definitely wrong. Don't
move.
Well, don't trust me on these figures I'm saying. These are the fact checking shit, right? So we're at the stage here, right? So we're saying, right, we're talking about automation killing most manual labour jobs in the next 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. And this is why they're referring to like a universal basic income, and about putting a certain amount of money into people's accounts every month, just so that they can have a certain standard of living. And like, what's the goal of all this? What's the 100-year plan for humans? I don't know. And would that work? Because look, as it is, money is basically fake. Like, America is trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, but the Federal Reserve, like the actual physical gold and everything else that their currency is based on, can't match the amount of money. So they're basically screwed that way. A lot of people believe the whole world's economy is screwed that way.
I think it is. Like what Elon Musk says as well about AI is a very interesting one. We've summoned a demon.
Well, Elon Musk really believes that certain people should be assassinated. That are, well, assassinated maybe not, but removed, because they're trying to create a singularity, and the singularity, as he believes it, and others believe, is the most dangerous thing we're facing now into the future.
Yeah.
Because if you could create an artificial intelligence, a singularity, right, that learns exponentially and becomes somewhat of a god overnight, well then what?
So what? Yeah, it's a very, I love it. I think it's a very, very, very interesting concept. What Ben Goertzel says as well, it's like, fuck, is he one of these people that should be assassinated?
Well, you see, Goertzel has a totally utopian idea of it, right? So his belief, this is from my understanding, again I could be wrong, so from his belief point, I think it's that if a singularity is created that learns exponentially and becomes somewhat of a god overnight, well then it would be able to solve all the problems
of hunger, poverty, war, disease, space travel,
but here's
time
the problem.
travel.
Most of those problems could be solved already.
Yeah.
The problem is humans, power, corruption,
greed, greed. sure, like renewable energy is such a thing, like geothermal.
Well, no.
Tidal power is an amazing
Well,
one.
most so-called renewable energy is shit. Did you watch that documentary Michael Moore did on it?
No.
And I don't even like Michael Moore very much. But basically when he looks at, we'll say, solar power, wind power, all of these things, right? And the fact that they're not reliable and you need an actual resource for energy, whether it's carbon-based or whatever else to back it up, right? And these things don't like being switched on and off the whole time, whether it's a coal plant or whatever else, right? That really and truly these things are not renewable and they're not green energy. Like a windmill is not green energy because the amount of energy involved in building a windmill, putting up the windmill, putting in the concrete, and then the windmill only lasts for a certain number of years, and then it's not even energy efficient to remove that windmill.
But is it due to a lack of funding because of the corporations in power who
how much so how much diesel do you think it takes to take all these minerals out of the ground, from machinery going up and down, drilling, then to process, then to transport these things, then to actually create these things in factories, and the energy that goes into creating these things and developing them, and then putting them all together, and then transporting them to a site to build your fucking windmill on, and to put the concrete in, and you have to remember all that sand and gravel and cement had to be dug out of the ground as well, which cost energy, both in diesel and everything else, and then the actual fact that the windmill, when it knocks off, it has to be backed up with some sort of carbon-based energy, whether it's coal or something else, and that in itself is not technically green or renewable.
No.
And then when the fucking thing becomes obsolete, they don't even, it's not worth their while to take them down or try to recycle them, because the energy involved in doing that. The only renewable energy right now is nuclear. The only green energy right now in the world is nuclear, right? And people are afraid of nuclear because of Fukushima and fucking Chernobyl, right? People are afraid of it. But obviously those nuclear power plants, they had no turn-off plan. They didn't know how to switch them off. They I don't know what they thought. They probably thought, oh, we'll get smarter in the future, we'll figure out how to turn these off. But then when you had a meltdown where the actual core keeps melting down into the earth, keeps burning down, right? Where there's no switch off.
Yeah.
Right? But the modern nuclear power plants have a way to switch off, have a way to knock off. And then there's the idea of using the likes of fucking Elon Musk's rockets to remove fucking nuclear waste into space and maybe send it into the sun. So
why would you send it into the sun? Oh, just destroy it.
Just to get rid of it
right.
completely, not to have it floating around up there anyway.
Right.
Just to remove it completely, get rid of it. So, but how hard would it be to convince people, we'll say in Leitrim, right, that we want to put a nuclear power plant there? How hard would it be to convince the Irish public that a nuclear power plant is the most green, most efficient, and the most renewable energy right now in the world?
It's interesting.
That if you want to help going forward, that this is the first step you need to take. Anybody who believes an electric car is green is deluded, because the amount of lithium you need to take out of the ground, the amount of mining and again energy resource going into it, how long does that battery last? Like the hydrogen vehicle is probably more suitable, which basically means it runs on water, H2O.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if you can have a vehicle running on water, no oil company's going to want that, are
No. This is what I'm getting back to. Is it oil companies stopping us looking into different types of renewable energy, like you're saying? No.
I think overall...
Is there other avenues?
I think overall it's just the economy, the way the economy is based throughout the world, and our reliance on certain work, certain energy, and certain life. Ashwin, how are you?
Hey man, how's it going?
Alright.
Come on in for a second here, Ashwin.
Come on in.
Yeah, one minute.
Our man from Mauritius.
With the tea, that's delicious.
There you go. You just create a poem for him.
Just create a poem for you. We're recording a podcast. Flick that screen there. Just flick that. And then come over here.
I don't.
You want to say hello?
No.
Why?
No, just in case somebody recognises you, look.
You know.
You're as bad as I am, Ashwin. You don't like your photo being taken.
I don't.
I sat to a guy here one day. Ashwin comes in and starts taking photographs. I'm like,
And I say that to my parents. I said that.
I stopped him here. I think it was later that day or the next day. I said, hey, what are you taking photographs of me for?
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
I show my parents outside how it is here, you know.
Yeah.
Paranoia of it.
And then the next day I say that to my parents. I said, you know, the guy next door, say that to me, or was I taking his picture?
Little video chat, was it?
I don't know what it was. That was it. Take the video of me. I wasn't impressed. That's just my paranoia. It's just like, what the fuck? But yeah, you're just getting back to, yeah, but look, it's all just down to this, isn't it? The world's economy is all based on a certain thing right now. Coronavirus is showing you how people are willing to risk safety for freedom, because at the end of the day we all need to live, we all need to pay our bills.
Risk liberty for freedom, is it? Or risk liberty for safety.
Get rid of the safety, risking safety for the freedom. Like, if they turn around and say to you, right, you're safe if you stay home, but yet you can make a free choice and go out and work in the world and risk getting something that may or may not kill you or your parent.
People are going out and working.
That's the premise behind COVID, even though now we understand it's not so dangerous. So what are people choosing right now? People are choosing to live. People are choosing to resist now. People are choosing to say, fuck you, fuck your plan and fuck your idea. Right? I can't continue on this way and be impoverished and ruin the future for any idea of the future I had for my kids. Because like, what are we doing it for? Like, why the fuck do I come in to work every day? It's obviously to give my kids a better opportunity than I had. That's the reality of it. Am I willing to risk my safety to continually, we say, provide for their future? Yeah, I fucking will. Of course I will. So, what is the crack? That is the question. How do you, is this all part of this new idea that people have, this New World Order, the Great Reset, whatever they want to call it? It's like if you follow Ivor Cummins, Fat Emperor on Twitter. The hashtag is, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? In one interview he did say that it's not a conspiracy when these people, the WHO and certain economic powers in the world, are stating why they're doing it and why they want it done.
Yeah, I don't like this thing, you know why?
Which thing?
It's not about me. It's about my ex-family, you know. Because I've been hanging out with them. I went to all the funerals and everything, you know. So what if someone see the people say, oh, he was best friend with them and all that? They have like loads of people who hate them, and enemies, you know.
Yeah, because it's guilt by association.
You know,
it's like we say with the Hutch Keenan feud up in Dublin, guilt by association. If you're associated with one of them, you are a target.
Even you're just a friend, just say hello. Next day, bang.
But sure, I have the same thing really. Like, I'm friends with some people who have been targeted.
You know what I mean?
And then I have to sort of, I don't worry about it, and I'm not afraid, because you can't worry about these things. It's like people up the north, or people in war areas like Iraq. Kids still go out and play soccer. You know what I mean? You can't live your life in fear.
No.
But it's just, look, obviously you're trying to say is, look, yeah, but you're not going to put yourself at risk either. You're not going to present yourself as a target. You're not going to have it known into the world, well, this is where I am, come and get me.
And I used to only party with them. I go everywhere they go, you know. They don't know that, hey, this guy is just a family member with them, you know.
Yeah.
Remember when we went to the funeral?
They wouldn't care anyway. At the end
They
of the day,
they don't
care. Look,
they won't.
Most of these guys that go around doing these things that are gang related, are off their heads on coke or alcohol. It ain't that easy for these people to just walk in stone sober and fucking pull the trigger. That's the difference between, I suppose, what they refer to as a professional hitman and just this average guy who's going to do the job. A professional hitman is obviously a guy who can just walk in clinically and do it.
Bang, bang, yes.
Whether he's ex-army, ex-special forces.
But some of the boys in Dublin, just 15, 16, 17 years old, they are, compared to the professional, they know how to do the job because they've been doing it for so long. Their friends, the father, the cousin, you know.
They grew up in it, like.
Rob the cars, this, God, the fire, gone, you know. In Ireland, there's so many people got killed, no one knows, like. Sad, like. Very sad.
Is it sad?
It's sad.
How many people get killed in Mauritius?
Not much.
Did you? No.
Mauritius is tiny, man. I was looking at it.
The last person who got shot or killed in Mauritius, maybe fucking 50, 60 60 years. There's no murder.
Oh, there was an Irish couple that went to
The fucking
Mauritius.
guy killed her. She got married again, she had the girl, everything.
You believe her husband
I
killed her?
100%.
They say that it was 2 guys in Mauritius were charged for it.
No,
They say it was the people working in the hotel that killed her. That's, you see, that's national pride, national identity. He doesn't want to say it.
He doesn't want to admit that people have died in Mauritius.
Well, no, he doesn't want to admit that we'd say a tourist was killed in Mauritius by somebody from Mauritius.
Fair enough.
Which is, hey, you can be killed by anybody, anywhere, at any time. You just have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, meet the wrong person. It doesn't affect your national identity. You know what I mean? No, how mad are people in general?
We're nuts.
We are nuts, aren't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'd say, is the Great Reset that they refer to, is it a good thing? Isn't New World Order a good thing because it can't continue on the way we're going?
I don't know. I don't think either of us will see it.
Oh, hey, you're what? You're under 30? You'll see it. You'll see it. When my mother was born, I don't think they had ESB, electricity.
Yeah.
They probably had to have a radio. They didn't even have a TV. She's still alive. You've got satellites flying around. You've Elon Musk sending rockets up and down willy-nilly. It can come and go. There's no such thing as dumping them when you're finished anymore. And you fucking, she can talk to her daughter, my sister, in America on a phone and see her in real time.
It's magic. Like if you told someone that 200-300 years ago, that's magic.
Yeah, that's witchcraft.
Yeah. But it is essentially magic. Like it's just, we don't look at it that way because it's normalized, you know? What do you define magic as? Because to be able to do something like that, to make a person to send the vibrations from one part of the world to another via a device, it's the same as like the witch's ball.
Do you want me to tell you what my definition of magic is?
Go for it.
It's something that's outside the realm of physics.
Okay, right.
So
it's outside the realm of physics.
Everything that we have is within
realm of physics, yeah.
Because physics have allowed us to have these things. Like if it wasn't for, what's his name, the dude in the chair?
But that's a Newtonian scientific version of definition of magic. But if you went back to an ancient culture and you asked them what their definition of magic was, and they didn't even have the conceptualization of physics or have science, then it's magic to them, you know?
But see,
I do understand what you're saying.
So do you think that Socrates, or the Greek guy that figured out the circumference of the earth, or that Arabian scholars who came up with mathematics, or Asian, Chinese scholars with mathematics, right, didn't have a concept of physics?
Yeah, well, I'm sure they did. Of course they did,
because they understood maths, which maths is a language.
Yeah.
But then, what was their definition
But
of magic?
if you time traveled back and slapped an iPhone 10 in front of him and told him he could ring fucking...
yeah, he wouldn't know how it works.
Yeah, of course.
The truth is, me and you don't know how it works either.
No, I've no idea.
Like if you give me an old fucking tape recorder and ask me to reverse engineer it, I wouldn't have a fucking clue.
No.
You know what I mean? Back to the Bob Lazar thing, drop a nuclear power plant back 500 years ago. They wouldn't have a fucking clue. That's me with a tape recorder right now. Show me your finger. There's a touch on your finger needed done, wasn't there? Which one was it?
That?
I'll do that one, but there was something else. There was a...
You did that one there.
This one here.
Okay, yeah.
So which one did you point out on your thumb, was it?
Just a little bit at the top of the thumb, yeah.
Sure. But yeah, so what you have here is two idiots talking shit. As Neil deGrasse Tyson put it, we know enough to think we're right, but not enough to know we're wrong.
Yeah.
So we're skirting around topics here the last couple of hours that we actually don't really know enough about.
Literally just...
to have an informed opinion.
We're literally dipping the toes in.
We're just
the
talking
superficial knowledge, talking shit about subjects that sound good.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But at least we're willing to think about them.
Yeah. But it's good though that we're bouncing, like, because you could stay on AI there, like I'd go deep on AI if I could,
but
for what I know.
We both could stay on AI, but at the end of the day we would just prove how stupid we are because we don't know enough about it.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All we're going to end up talking about is our fears. Do we really have those fears, or are we conveying the fears of others? Like Elon Musk is afraid of AI because Elon Musk makes a great argument why you should be afraid, and now we're going to sit here and repeat it.
And be afraid.
But it's not really our thoughts. We didn't come up with this.
Yeah.
It was his that we're listening to, believe and regurgitate. As far as like the Goetzel believes that if he creates AI, it'll be
Save humanity, guess.
yeah, it'll be benevolent. Whereas fucking Musk is sort of thinking AI is going to be like fucking Terminator. It's going to look at humans like a virus and remove us.
Hey, it's the flip of a coin, isn't it? It's the flip of a coin.
What was it? Do you remember Friedman? Is it Lex Friedman?
Yeah.
Around it. See, we only know all these people really because of the Joe Rogan podcast, right? And Rogan has a lot to answer for the amount of podcasts, including this one.
Yeah.
And he has a lot to answer for we'll say, even the conversations we're having, because a lot of these people have been introduced to us through him, which, hey, is obviously a good thing, you know what I mean? That's why he's worth 100 million plus. But Friedman reckons, Friedman's idea of it is basically, sooner or later humans are going to create AI. Sooner an AI will say that is a singularity. So his attitude is, well, why not me? Why can't I be the one that creates it? Why can't I be the one who discovers it if it's not created, if you want to put it that way? Why can't he be the one that comes through with it? Because whether it happens now, 50 years time, 100 years time, 1,000 years time, sooner or later it's going to happen. That's their thought process.
That's it, yeah. Rather be a part of it than just fucking, you know, a bystander.
Yeah. Let me see, let me check this hand. Look, again, as you said, we're dipping the toes in the shit we know nothing about. It's just standard human fears, isn't it?
I'm optimistic about AI.
Are you optimistic about AI? What about the time was it there was two AIs on Facebook or somewhere that were
Creating their own.
well, they were communicating with each other,
Yeah.
and nobody understood what they were saying to each other, what communication they were having.
Yeah, they started
So,
making their own language.
For safety's sake, they just knocked both of them off.
But that's going to happen again.
It could have happened again already. It could be
Yeah,
happening right
right
now.
now, yeah.
Who's to say that there's not fucking Chinese fucking programs working away there that we don't understand? Maybe the Chinese believe that there's some control over it. Maybe their algorithms are fucking bouncing around constantly through social media, and maybe they're the ones that are subconsciously controlling our thoughts, our thought processes, or through our the narratives that we're fucking believing in. You know what I mean? So really, what we should have discussed here was probably something fucking relevant like tattooing. How'd you get into tattooing?
Yeah.
What's
How
the
long have you been
process behind it?
tattooing?
Or talking crap about. This is like Brendan Shaw and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, bro science.
Bro science, yeah. Fuck's sake.
It's always fun though.
Armchair psychology.
Yeah.
Talking about issues that do they or don't they actually concern us, and are they going to affect our actual lives?
They do concern us. They do. As human beings, we have a right to talk about whatever we want.
Well, certain things definitely do concern us. Killing all the fucking fish in the sea concerns us. Global warming concerns us. Renewable energy that's not actually renewable, that's actually a fucking fake fucking idea, green energy, when the only real safe and renewable energy is nuclear. That concerns us. How do you convince people that nuclear is the best way forward? That the nuclear power plants of today are not like the ones previous?
It's still trying to convince me because Fukushima.
Well, Fukushima is one of those where there was no off on it. They didn't know how to knock it off.
Did they not?
No.
But was it not that tsunami, regardless of whether they were able to knock it off or not, that Mother Nature hit it with a fucking giant wave?
Okay, so Mother Nature's coming at you.
Yeah. You hit off.
You have a half an hour, 20 minutes warning. Hit a switch, knock it off.
Yeah. Okay, so it was like...
Now, obviously it's not going to switch off straight away, but you know what I mean? There's a process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or should these things, like, look, Japanese culture has, from my understanding, has this fucking... Within their culture, they're really stuck on what's Armageddon. If you look at any of their cartoons, their movies and everything, this concept of Armageddon is within their psyche. Because they live on a fucking, it's thousands or hundreds of islands, not sure, could be wrong with thousands, hundreds of little islands scattered. as a result of, would say, a huge amount of volcanic activity.
Mm.
Then you have, would say, from Nagasaki, Hiroshima, the natural disasters, whether it's volcanoes, tsunamis, and everything, shorter history, have this sort of culture in their head, this association with Armageddon.
Mm. Like fuck.
They're going to be fucked over somewhere. But should you really be putting a nuclear power plant somewhere where it's unstable, we'll say, environmentally?
Probably not.
Probably not,
No.
no. Should you put a nuclear power plant somewhere in the Midwest of America where it could be hit by a tornado?
No. Should you put one somewhere? I know we've got no. Do we have any? We don't have any tectonic plates that are loose around Ireland that could cause a big tsunami.
No, obviously the reason Ireland and England, as far as I'm aware, is separate from Europe is because there is a tectonic plate here somewhere.
Okay. So that could happen someday, could it? Fair enough.
I don't know.
Right.
But then you have to ask yourself, like, where is the safest places to put nuclear plants?
On Mars.
Or where there's the least amount of problems
Yeah.
through environment, isn't it?
East Africa. Nice. So are we wrapping up?
Yeah, just give me a second to bleed. If you're not really bleeding, are you?
No, not really. No, it was just a shedding.
I have to go home and inject my dog, my diabetic dog.
We've got 20 minutes. It's 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Roughly.
Yeah, well,
Give or take.
I
10.
actually inject her at 9:30.
Yeah.
But I have 9 o'clock in my head.
Just to get you
Just
out
to
the
make
door.
sure that I'm there in time. Because we need to keep her her injections and her food and everything fucking the
Consistent,
same,
yeah.
consistent, yeah. If it's not consistent, then she has issues.
Fair.
Do that.
Get that done.
So we see, yeah.
Look. Yeah.
Your Berber tattoos. Do with your
Berber.
African heritage.
Do with the African heritage, yeah. Lovely. So is that?
I just have to wrap you up.
No, I mean for the podcast we'll say thanks for tuning in and listening to some shit talk.
Absolute shit talk for a couple
Yeah.
hours of two people who know nothing.
We know absolutely nothing, but at least we know nothing. Right. Cheers, man. We'll